Hello. I wanted to share a subtle change of how I'm orienting in the world. I've had a couple of interactions where one of them was interacting with a company executive at a hangout, and then I sent her a follow up email over the weekend. And I noticed the stress in my body over expectations of me and how these tied into stories of past failure, fear of future failure. And I've been noticing more and more over the last few months, but really more and more over the last few weeks, that these imagined failures don't appear the way that I anticipate them to. So more and more, I've been noticing the difference between the picture that dread paints of, the week to come after a weekend or whatever, and the reality. There have been multiple big and small interactions and projects for work. There's been work, and there's been thinking about my daughter who's with her dad right now, and just stories around that. I felt a lot of stress or a lot of pressure and potential anticipation of like, oh no, what doors have I opened and what have I done? Um, Getting in touch with that executive and thinking about just my daughter and how, the future for her, and just expectations of like yet another meeting that I had today to actually um, one for work and then one as a community leader. And over the weekend, I did all these things, all these nice, community interaction things, but some of them were, some of it was intense, and there was some confrontation there. And with so much packed into, I guess, this last week, you could say, and this weekend, I noticed a letting go of story. I thought, the stress that I'm feeling right now is from this physically registered history of failure and that intensity in my gut of disappointing others or um, failing to show up somehow. And I thought, what if I put that down? Because when I act from a place of spontaneity without that fear, it works. Things just happen because in this, I've been just getting through stressful things in the moment, moment by moment. And there are these last minute scrambles. And I learned this in theater a lot, where it's the show must go on kind of thing. And just when everything feels like it's falling apart, you just stay up till midnight the night before and you make it work, and you scramble something together out of nothing. And suddenly you've created something that you couldn't have imagined. Um, because that's just how it goes. You just do your best in the moment and it comes together. And it's also helped thinking about what it doesn't come together, um, and thinking about the realistic outcome of that, and it not being the end of the world where a meeting has to be postponed or something won't get covered, or um, someone will be disappointed and I'll have to say sorry. I'll do it. Um, and I've done that before. I've lived through that before. Some of what I allowed this weekend is, and this is going from advice that I've heard from some of the talks that I've been listening to, where whatever's going on, if it's showing up in your body, to lean into feeling it in your body. So I did a lot of that this weekend, where either late at night or early in the morning, or um, this physical dread would come up. And I knew that this is the stuff that if I just give this space, because this is the stuff we distract from, that it seems so benign to distract from this, but this is the stuff that, it was right. The time was right for me to be able to just feel into my body and to really let that dread be felt and to hold it. And I felt myself saying the whole time the word love. There's a video, maybe I'll link that video here. There's an emotion work video um, that I like, that's part of my Awake Loop playlist. Um, and one of the nights I was listening to that on a loop over and over into the night. And it gave me kind of the energetic vocabulary, you could say, to hold space for that dread and for that fear of failure. And I just let it surge through me in different textures. Um, because I'm integrating and internalizing more and more that the more I give space to these visceral, guttural feelings to be felt, the more I can dissipate them. And I was able to do it without this cause effect thought, without being like, well, okay, if I do this more, then it'll go away faster. I put that down also and just invited it to be there in a place of love and being held. I've been seeing more spontaneity and innocence on my part. There's a spider on the ceiling above me. And I wonder who that is. Sorry. When I was after processing or during processing in this way, I was able to feel more on, not just in my mind, but in my life, how I've allowed story to limit me and to scare me into freaking out instead of stepping forward. So it's nice to be noticing that any moment that I'm scared, I can remember to put down the story of who I think I am, the story of having been a failure or having been you know, puffing up and being like, no, I'm smart and strong, or diminishing and being like, oh no, maybe. And then, I step into this question of, oh, who am I? Maybe I feel like I'm getting better at putting all of that down, putting down this need to define who I am within a certain story, who I am to that executive, that I um, chatted up, and how, do I sound ridiculous, or do I sound like this, or is she just being nice to me? And she, putting all of that down, doing and saying what feels like the thing to do and say in the moment, and letting it go the moment it passes, without having to fit into the story of what that is. It feels like courage, but it also feels like walking in fear and dread simultaneously. And letting that and feeling it when it comes up, to just give it space to be felt, and you just keep going anyway, without any grandeur, with no victory, and with no um, I'm not thinking about like, oh, I hope this dread doesn't come back. Now it's just this constant wave of like, it goes up and down. And I understand that this might clear eventually, where things just flow. But it's interesting to be in this stage right now of clarifying. I went to Alaska and I came back, and I was kind of in a low question mark of undefined space. And I knew that, you know, I just allowed for the low to be low, but it was very uncomfortable. Um, and every day and every hour and every minute was a question mark of, how am I going to feel in this next moment? And there was no comfort. There was nothing defined. So it's interesting to be arriving in this moment where what's happening is a dissolution of story. And so it's really great because I don't have to figure out whether I'm smart or pathetic or a failure or really great. I can just move through life, and it seems to be working. And I find myself giving feedback to people in a way that works, in a way that's loving and received. And I find myself being more expressive, um, less scared of how I'm seen. Something that I'm working on right now, I guess that's a different topic, is still how I contract and tighten when I go from not being seen to being seen, like on a walk in my neighborhood. It's interesting to notice that. But just to wrap it up, um, I'm happy to be letting go of story, not just in my mind, but on a visceral life level. It feels like a next step in dissolving.